Hello and welcome to Jack and Mel Super Ad MMA Show. I'm Jack.
And I'm Mel.
And it's great to have you with us today. We have had more news that we have to try and trudge through here and make sense of. The UFC 230 card, which is already stacked, has just had an announcement that, Ariel Helwani has announced it, that he thinks that the rumours are Gustafsson and Romero to headline for the, and I quote, either interim or full title. So there's a number of things to talk about here. First of all, seems odd to me considering the rumblings of the 165-pound division, which is apparently going to have Nate and Dustin Poirier as their headline event on the same card. By the way, you can find our thoughts on that in the description box down below. What do you think the UFC are doing here with the Gustafsson-Romero card?
I think it's...
Or fight,
yeah. I think it's just this incessant need to have a title fight at the top of the division, or at the top of these sort of like marquee cards. And of course, Madison Square Garden, New York, they're still new to that market. Makes sense. As for having it, there's a few questions with this fight. First of all, one, what does that mean for DC?
Right, so you would assume that if they're talking about this not being an interim, you would have to assume DC ain't never coming back to 205.
This man is not making 205 pounds again.
Who'd have thunk it? We ironically again had a video where we talked about this and made a comment that in order for him to make 205 again, he would have had to use a lot of towels to
just be suspended by towels.
Correct. I think we'd been suspicious he might not make it down a little bit too much to Popeye's chicken, but it still does seem odd because DC. I'm a massive DC fan, and I'm surprised that he would lead people to thinking he was coming back to 205 without having an intention to.
Well, I think it was mainly just to have the promotional push when the Lesnar fight eventually happens, that he is a dual champion. Is
that all you think it was? Yeah,
I think so. Like it was fairly obvious from his physique that that was it, and he'd really struggled to make weight in his previous light heavyweight title fights. I think we might find the filthy word interim thrown onto if this fight actually happens.
Which was my next question. Does that mean, so if it is not an interim belt, right? First of all, if it's an interim belt, interim belts. If it's not an interim belt, does that mean UFC are sailing DC up the river?
No, because at the end of the day, the man is still the heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah,
but
he doesn't really need it. I think it's literally just for that.
Well, it is
to be promoted against Lesnar.
Yes, I get that, but do you not feel a little bit like for DC, you take the Brock fight, and if you win, you go out 2-division champ. You go out on top.
At the same time, he can't hold. I'm of the opinion that he can't hold up a division if he has no intention of ever going back, and he just wants to ride off into the sunset after smashing Lesnar. You can't hold up the light heavyweight belt until you've had your moment in the sun. There's guys whose careers, there's a limited period of time. You've got to make the most of it, and you can't if you're not planning on competing there. You got to give it up.
Well, I suppose that's fair enough to an extent. You would just think that with how long the UFC let Conor do it, and I know it's different, but you'd think that out of respect for DC, they might. That Brock fight I think is rumored to be happening. Early next year.
It would seem that way, but I mean,
in which case,
there's one set of rules for everybody else.
I know, but this is my point.
There's one set of rules for Conor.
This is my point: is that,
and if DC was making the same amount of pay-per-view sales and making the UFC the same amount of money, he'd be in the exact same situation.
But this is what I'm saying about the UFC, though. Why can they not just not do the interim fight because it's dumb, as they always are? Why not just put them as that this is the contender fight, and after DC and Brock gets wrapped up, if the belt needs to be, if they need to get a proper champion, if you will, the two contenders or the winner of the contender against the next contender in line can just fight for the undisputed belt. Whenever DC officially drops it, it just seems silly to me to give an interim belt for no real reason, because
no.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm 100% against the interim belts because interim belts, but just make it the official belt. I think, like I said, if you're not fighting there, you're not planning to fight there, you're planning to retire in, I think it was April or May time, you just got to give it up.
I completely agree with
Which
you on that.
raises the second point. A former light heavyweight champion floating about, who we have spoken about recently, rumoured also for the New York card, Mr. Jon Jones. Where does he fit in all this?
Well, where he fits in all this, I think, is I don't care. I want to see him get battered by Gus. I made a prediction.
Not going to happen.
You see, everyone is just riding Jon Jones. The guy is amazing. He is the greatest of all time currently, if not one of. I am not disputing that, but I just think that in this sport, dedication, attitude, commitment, those things all, like, there's a certain amount of sway that the intangibles get you.
Yeah, that's true if this was a fair world, but it's not. Jon Jones cannot train
And nearly get beaten by OSP.
Go on coke benders and still beat Gustafsson.
I just don't know if that's true.
I get it, and there's a moralistic thing there. You know, Gustafsson's never put a foot wrong. He's trained hard. He's, you know...
It's not a moralistic thing.
No, but he's, you know, like, he'd be a good champion to have. He'd, you know, it'd be the wrestling terms. He'd be the face against the heel.
Yes,
Jon
but
Jones. It just does not work that way.
But that's not important to me. That's not what my point with Gus is. My point with Gus is that, you know, that fight in the first place was razor close, and I'm adamant. Some people may disagree, and if you do, let us know in the comments below. I'm adamant that Gus is better than he's ever been. Now, you could say Jon Jones is better than he's ever been, but we have nothing to base that on currently, since he's been out for quite some time now. Now, I'm not suggesting that all of a sudden he'll have just dropped off a cliff. What I'm saying is that he openly says he doesn't train that much. If anyone thinks that he's still not out partying and taking coke, you're deluded. You know, I do have a personal...
In fairness, like, despite Jon Jones's many, many issues and suspensions and times out and title strippings and this, that and the other, they've kind of been about as active as each other. So I don't think there's this Gustafsson could have got a whole lot better than Jones could have got a whole lot better.
No, because I think that Gustafsson's training more than Jones, and I think that does matter.
I don't know, I just don't think that gap... I think Gustafsson's best chance to ever beat Jon Jones came and went. See, and he came up short.
That's where I disagree. I think that his best chance is still ahead of him. So it's by the by anyway. I think that Jon Jones will probably get a warm-up fight handed to him on a platter, another OSP type fight. And it's not that OSP is an easy fight, and I don't want to discredit OSP. It's just that on paper, when OSP fought Jones, like that's hands down Jones' worst performance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hands down. And the thing is that he has more of those performances in him. You can't have a performance like that against Gus. You can't.
Well, he also came back and then looked like he did against DC.
Absolutely.
Hadn't skipped the beat, looked better than ever.
Absolutely, but there's a difference there, which is that I think that he has has DC's number, and B, and this is the big difference, I believe that he did train pretty hard for that fight. Much harder than the rumours are suggesting, and I think that he has even said himself.
Yeah, but you're ruling out the possibility that what if Jon Jones trains harder than he's ever trained for a fight?
Well, then he may well beat Gus. I'm not disputing that. I'm only going off what I've seen, you know, off various articles and things I've seen him say in the press. Like, I'm not. This is a theory.
I think you're not of clear mind, young Jack. I think your judgment has been clouded by hate.
It could well be
hate
because
has taken over your heart.
It could well be because MMA
is rationality says Jon Jones all day.
Well, that's fair enough. I will not be betting on Jon Jones in that fight at all. And you're damn right. There is some emotion involved in it, and it is because this sport is very important to me, as it is to you. And the integrity of the sport and the image of the sport is very, very important. And I hold Jon Jones very much responsible for, in the same way that Conor's responsible for changing the perception of the MMA world. You know, Jon Jones has so much clout that he can go and get scooped on all these drugs, just rat people out, not ever have to pay any kind of proper comeuppance for his transgressions in the MMA world. He can just skate away with it because he's Jon Jones, and I just don't buy it. There's no respect for the sport. There's no respect for, opponents for anything. He's just a freaking scumbag to me now. And you're damn right that I have gone off, man. It is partly personal. It is like you're right.
Partly?
And no, because there is this is my point. It may be partly personal, but I don't like the idea that people are trying to say that Gus Gus couldn't ever beat him. Like, I agree that Jon Jones
I'm not saying he couldn't ever beat him. I just think, like I said, his best chance to, I think, is been and went. I think
Why is that?
I think if Jon Jones was fighting Gustafsson again, he wouldn't take it as lightly as he did the first time around.
Well, maybe not.
And I just don't, and I just haven't. And Gus has also been super inactive with injuries and whatnot. So
to be fair, and at the
I think, yeah,
at the risk of sounding wishy-washy on it, like I'm not trying to suggest that Jon Jones couldn't beat Gus. I know that he like I've said this in his video. Jon Jones is, if not the GOAT, one of them. I'm not trying to take away from that, but I am suggesting that Gus is good enough to beat Jon Jones. It's whether he will or not, I don't know. I'm hopeful he will. I'm confident he will, and I'm just sticking to my guns on it that there is a case for Gus, and I think more people should at least look at Gus as someone that could cause a problem for Jones. I don't like it.
He absolutely could, but for now, it's not Jon Jones he has to worry about, because apparently, which brings me on to my third point, it's Mr. Yoel Romero, the same Yoel Romero who
couldn't fight Paulo Costa.
Yeah, who withdrew from this card yet not even a month ago due to doctor's orders about an injured eye, which would I can't remember if it said it was required surgery or not, but he certainly wouldn't be fit to fight in time. Well, flash a bit of gold that direction, and that eye seems to have
changed the weight class.
Oh, sorry, his eyes weren't cutting weight.
No, but my point is that so perhaps his reasoning was, I've got a medical reason not to fight at middleweight, and then whenever they offered him a light...
But when the medical reason is your eyesight, that doesn't improve because you're cutting less weight. That would be my problem. If he said, look, it's too soon after Whittaker, I'm recovering, my body's taking a battering. I didn't make the weight the fight before that.
Yep.
I'm 40 whatever years old. Fair enough. But when you go, my doctor says I can't fight because I have an eye condition.
No, that's my point. I don't necessarily believe that. That's my point. That's what I'm saying. Is that sounds to me like he's probably had an eye problem of some sort, right? And what I'm saying is, I believe the sequence of events was probably more likely. I can't. My doctor says I have a bad eye. When the reality of it is that was him just trying to buy time, and then whenever the UFC offered him the fight that he actually wanted, it was, I'll go and see what I can get done and see if I can get my eyes sorted.
In fairness to him, nothing has been announced yet. We are literally basing this all off rumours. Ariel's, he's got a reasonably good record with announcing these things. Romero at 205. I like it a lot. I think you get every aspect of Romero that is good, I think, is better at 205 without that weight cut. I think Romero beats everyone in that division, and I'm taking DC out of that division, so he's gone in my mind. He beats everyone in that division, not named Jon Jones.
Yes, I can see it, but I also think that stylistically, tough matchup for Jon Jones. That'd be another fight
absolutely.
where I could easily make a case for Romero with that.
Oh, I could make a case for him. Yoel Romero is a tough matchup for any man on earth.
He's just so explosive and dynamic, especially I'm super curious to see without the weight cuts. It's gonna be crazy. It's just weird to me that they're doing both interim and potentially full title. We've talked about that already, but the whole thing is odd to me. But tell me this, if that fight goes ahead, so let's say we see Gus Romero at 205, who you got and how does it go?
I have Romero third round TKO, looking very similar to what he did to Luke Rockhold.
Yeah, I see rounds 1 and maybe 2 going to Gus, and then getting caught by something explosive.
That's what I see. Gus staying on the outside, Romero being fairly inactive, figuring out the reach, figuring out the distance, and then bam.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And it also, here's the thing, I know I've just made a case for Gus to beat Jon Jones, and I've now said that I think that Romero would beat Gus, but here's the difference. Jon Jones, great striker, it's not the same.
No,
it's
no.
not
Plus,
that. It's not that. You know, you could.
plus
It's a pitter
A beats
patter.
B, but C beats B.
It's MMA math.
C beats A. MMA math means all anyway.
Yeah, I think
Styles
you're right.
make fights.
So we both have Romero winning that fight. Then
It'd be a hell of a fight.
it would be. I mean, there's a lot of questions.
Romero could eat one of those horrific uppercuts that Glover Teixeira had. About he loved
about
them so,
30 of them for
he
lunch.
loved them so much he wanted more. Oh, thank you, Mr. Gustafsson. One more uppercut, please. Thank you. One more. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
Please, sir, can I have some more?
Yeah.
That was. You see, that's the thing. Is that's what I mean about Gus. Is that Gus? Every time I see him, looks slicker and slicker and slicker. His movement for such a large fellow is just absolutely tremendous. And there is a case for Gus to beat Romero, which is, of course,
absolutely. Keeping
the distance. And we could, as you say, you'd either see Romero eating a ton of uppercuts, or you could see just Gustafsson doing a Machida for 5 rounds. Yeah. Just circling around the outside, picking him. I just can't see it. I think what'll happen is the first 2 rounds will look like that, and then forward. Romero will explode forward, catch him with something. I think he's too dynamic, and it's also the reason why I would actually have a pretty strong. No, I would actually. I think I would go for Romero and Romero Jones.
Ooh, I don't know, but that's a discussion for another day.
It is indeed. Until then, if you've enjoyed this video, please click the big subscribe button down below. It really helps us out. If you know anybody who's into MMA, please send them our way, because we'd love to have you. Our podcast can be found at the link down below. It will be on iTunes in a few days' time, but we unfortunately have to go through an Apple verification process. But alas, we'll be there. Until then, peace.